Marjorie Hope Olson was born on December 27, 1941, at St. Mary's Hospital, located in San Francisco, California. In her family, they had 3 kids. She was the oldest, then came Mary, who was 2.5 years younger, and then came Bob, who was 6.5 years younger than Mary. She lived in San Francisco for the first 10 years of her life. Her and her sister loved playing cards together because it was always too cold in San Francisco to do any activities outside. However, when she was 10, her family moved to Southern California, and her siblings finally would go outside and ride their bikes with their friends because the weather was always nice there. When she started high school, she had a lot of friends and a few boyfriends. She loved going on dates where they would go to drive-in movies and out to eat at a local diner afterwards. A great memory she has of high school was also being nominated and winning Homecoming Queen. Her prime years then came soon after in college. She stated that at Whittier College she probably had too much fun. Here she met the love of her life, Jim, who was junior class president and a baseball player, which made her feel extremely cool and special. Considering that she grew up in a huge baseball family, her family loved Jim. A funny story that she remembers was that she had a chem lab during one of Jim's baseball games. So her mom and her friend's mom went to the game anyways, and they didn't have a way into the game, so they jumped over a fence to get in, which was hilarious for Marjorie because she never thought her mom would do such a thing. In college, she never thought she would become a teacher, but that's what she did as her career and she loved it. Especially the last 15 years when she taught junior high math and science classes. Another funny memory she says she will never forget is that one day she walked into her classroom and one of her students was eating the hamster food. Later on, Jim and Marjorie got married and had 3 children. She said she never thought much about being a mother, and when she was in the car going to the hospital with her first kid, it finally hit her, quote unquote, that holy crap, I'm going to be a mom. She thought it was going to be way too hard and stressful being a parent, but she said it was a lot easier than she expected, and that it was just a natural thing she knew how to do once she became a parent. Besides the sleepless nights and the circus created with all the conflicting schedules, being a mother has been a wonderful thing for Marjorie. Later on, she had knee surgery, so she did not work for a few months. She then realized at that time it was time to retire, so she never went back to teaching. She says her retirement has been one of the best times of her life because she can do the things she wants to do and do them at her own time.
My grandma's interests include traveling, reading, and spending time with friends and family. Particularly, she and my grandpa love watching their grandchildren participate in sporting events. The two didn't miss a single Regal soccer game this last season. She also likes to keep her intellect keen with puzzles and games including daily Sudoku, crosswords, and spider solitaire. In fact, a typical day for her involves waking up at 8 a.m. with a cup of coffee, the morning paper, and a Sudoku puzzle, only on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. On a normal week, daily activities include grocery shopping, going out to lunch with friends, cooking dinner with my grandpa, and watching television before bed. Spider solitaire is also a popular before bed activity. As far as concerns and worries go, she has a handful for her grandchildren. She worries for her grandkids living and growing in our current world. The state of our government and ISIS also pose major worries. She fears for her grandsons going to war and also for her and the health of her husband. My grandpa refuses to see a doctor, which makes her justifiably apprehensive. Her advice to young adults is to build a solid foundation of money to live on and enjoy during retirement. She wishes she had known as much about health that our current generation knows when she was younger. Marge Olson is a second generation American, a California native, all while being Irish, English, French, and German. The world she grew up in was carefree. She recalls, "We didn't have to lock our doors or ever worry about abuse or kidnapping." She boasts about her wonderful parents and grandparents. Marge considers herself very lucky to have grown up in the 40s and 50s, what she describes as a much simpler time with less crime and more happiness. In comparison to our world, she says in her younger years that Congress got along a lot better, she never worried about politics, and her students paid attention when she was teaching. And Nixon was fantastic. In comparison to her life during her 20s and 30s, she says our generation is getting married later. While she was in college, she says there was something wrong if you weren't in a serious relationship or engaged or married. Marge attended Whittier College where she met her husband, James Olson. She was married at age 19 and worked until her first child was born in 1963. My mom was her first child, Kristen Olson, followed by Jana Olson 5 years later, and last but not least, Eric Olson 4 years after Jana's birth in 1972. Middle adulthood, or early adulthood, was a unique experience for Marge. In early adulthood, her main concerns were her home life and focusing on being a good parent. She turned to substitute teaching only in specific circumstances, such as saving up for a vacation. Around age 35, however, she returned to working full-time. She went back to substitute teaching, all while pursuing her master's degree, in order to provide for her children's future, college educations, and to keep the family on their feet comfortably. She luckily did not go through a midlife crisis. Sandrock describes the term midlife crisis as the state of suspension an adult goes through between the past and the future, which involves coping with the gap that threatens life's continuity. From age 65 and on, she claims it has been a piece of cake. Aside from her back injury, it has been smooth sailing. You can do what you want when you want to, she says. However, she recalled her friends' husbands experiencing them. She recalled that typically, if a man was divorced, he fulfilled the crisis by chasing after lots of women. After I described a midlife consciousness, she found herself under that category for a few reasons. However, the consciousness occurred later for her. During ages 73 and 76, she has noticed the most changes in her appearance, which has caused some grief. However, her granddaughter Caitlin begs to differ, as her grandmother could not be more beautiful than she is at this moment, inside and out in every way possible. Her cousins would surely agree. Pivotal national events that impacted her life include John F. Kennedy's assassination and the attack on the World Trade Center. As most were left feeling, she recalls being very frightened and still is to this day. Looking back on everything, she has lived a charmed life. She says, "I met and married a wonderful person who is fun and has moral standards that match my own." Overall, she says that she has had a great life.
Mrs. Olson has been married for 57 years now. When asked about some of her family traditions, she recounted of having Christmas at the house every year with the exception of 3 or so years. At this special occasion, the dining room was set and the entire family could share memories, stories, and updates on current life. Another tradition that has been passed down for generations is the middle name Hope. It has been given to the daughters of the family since Mrs. Olson's grandmother's time. Another more recent tradition began about 12 years ago when she and her husband decided to become Angels season ticket holders. They go to spring training in Arizona every year now. She explained that her brother and his wife live in Arizona, so it is nice to see them at that time and go out to dinners and such. I asked her about how life changed once her children moved out of the house and began their own independent lives. She stated that without kids in the house, it was much quieter. She and her husband had more time for themselves and took up traveling. They have been to Mexico numerous times.
They also meet up with friends for meals and go to soccer and softball games to cheer on their grandchildren. Mrs. Olson also had more time for teaching, which she thoroughly enjoyed. She explained how she was able to go back and complete her master's degree. Her husband had more time to garden, and she started to grow roses, which made them both happy. When asked about friendships in her later adulthood years, she said that many of her closest friends are the ones that she has known the longest. Some of her husband's best friends are friends that he met in high school. Mrs. Olson discussed that as she got older, she had less time to foster numerous friendships in her life. Therefore, she currently has very strong friendships with fewer individuals. She said that as she got older, it was harder to make new friends because friendships take time and effort to nurture. This aligns with Santrock's theory on friendships in later adulthood. Mrs. Olson remembered the differences between raising a son and a daughter. She said that her son was trouble-free while the others were more headstrong. She discussed how all of her children were wonderful, but some were more opinionated than the others. Some searched their whole lives for happiness without any luck, but Marge sure seems to have hit the jackpot. In reality, her happiness doesn't come from luck at all. Santrock states that highly organized knowledge and understanding of a particular domain will make a person more creative and flexible in problem solving. Developing expertise and becoming an expert in a field is usually the result of many years of experience, learning, and effort. Marge developed her expertise through her years of teaching mathematics and science, and she maintains her memory skills by solving these weekly puzzles. A sharp intellect keeps a person confident and useful in society, which typically results in contentment. Marge also has had deep meaning in her life, which provides immediate benefits to her overall happiness and health. Australian psychologist Viktor Frankl wrote on about the meaning of life after surviving in a concentration camp. He proposed that people need to ask themselves questions such as why they exist, what they want from life, and what the meaning of their life may be. Marge described to us the importance of her relationship with her husband, grandchildren, and family overall. She has a loving and genuine bond with her soulmate, watches sporting events that her grandchildren participate in, and travels with her loved ones. These things fulfill each of Frankel's questions, which gives Marge's life true meaning, a direct result of her happiness and love for life.